1, 2, 3, 4. Perfection. Wait, 5. Hello there, Fable here. So I was experimenting with Trap Rogue and I like it for its versatility as AoE and single target DPS. However, unlike Twin Blade Zoom build, as I call it, it isn't as mobile as I would like at first until I recalled Concealment having synergy with Poison Trap. As you saw, Concealment allowed me to stack up to 5 traps and then kaboom! With Death Trap AoE gathering nearby enemies! So the funny thing about this build is the speed at which I can cycle Death Traps and Poison Traps. So combo wise, Concealment first into multiple Poison Traps and then Death Trap recycles Poison. Wow. Shadow Step recycles Concealment again. Now you're wondering how I'm recycling Concealment with Shadow Step? Thanks to the aspect of synergy, I'm able to reduce the cooldown of this skill quite a bit, allowing me to gain free usage of Poison Trap while also healing under stealth since thanks to the Infiltrator aspect. I can't break stealth while setting up Poison Trap. Then, I hit him good with godly speed to reduce Death Trap cooldown thanks to Exposure. As you can see, I'm shredding through multiple waves of mobs like it's nothing while sitting there sipping tea, which is quite busted in my opinion. For the other 2 slots, I'm using Twisted Blade because it does offer cooldown reduction per on-blade return hit against enemies. While it isn't as consistent of a return due to less mobility, it is an option to reduce cooldown further. Shadow Step is there to give me some mobility by jumping from one enemy to the next while also getting me out of crowd control, as enemies around this tier tend to apply a lot of CC, quite a lot of fears and whatnot. It also synergizes with Twisted Blade to reduce my cooldowns. In turn, this made me realize that prior testing, I noticed I was dying a lot due to crowd control. Hence, Concealment came to mind, as not only does it remove CC or crowd control, it allows me to apply multiple Poison Traps for free thanks to the aspect of Infiltration to get me out of these sticky situation. Thus, you have this version of Trap Rogue. Prior, I was testing with stuff like Dash with this setup as well as Dark Shroud. I didn't like either of them as while I was tanking with Dark Shroud, I was just stuck there. And if I got CC and no Shadow Step in time, then I would die due to multiple onslaughts of crowd control such as Fear Stuns, whatever, in large groups of mobs. With Dash, while I was zooming and proccing Twisted Blade reduction, I was really squishy and still getting CC, while also being far on having a random trap placed in odd spots sometimes. So it was really awkward. Also, I might as well play Imbue and Rogue Zoom with this if I'm adding Dash at that point. Which is why I added Concealment in the first place, due to it giving me both Sustain and more Poison Traps for a larger AoE triggering Explosion more often, and allowing me to spam my, of course, Death Trap. As well as some mobility to fix position and confusing enemies since I'm in stealth, and so it confuses the AI and I can just run around for a bit, heal, and then obviously reapply the poison and then trigger the exposure when need be. Now I'm quite curious what I can do with bosses. So let me show you guys a sample of a boss from this dungeon. That was really fast, but as you can tell, I messed up the rotation. I was testing how many bombs I can set off before, traps I can set off before I can recycle the poisons again. It looks like I shouldn't use all 5, otherwise the reduction would be too much. So I should have waited like maybe like 1 or 2 or even 3, and that should be enough. And then rotate from Concealment plus the Poison Trap again to then recycle the Death Trap, right? But it was pretty fast and pretty fun too, seeing how the HP bar just melted like that. But yeah, that's basically my my take on the Death Rogue, I think they call it, or the Death Trap Rogue, or Trap Rogue, whatever whatever they call it. But I'll show you guys the my tree now, and then I guess I'll show you the aspects I was using at that time. Alright, now onto the skill tree. We have your typical setup with puncture and of course your enhanced puncture, which will give you 2 energy whenever you hit a crowd control enemy. Luckily, base puncture does apply slow on critical strike, so it counts as CC if you don't know that. Well, slow counts as CC if you didn't know that. And then on the third one is it throws 3 blades instead as an AoE, or a spread rather, sorry, and it applies a vulnerability, so it increases your damage output as long as 2 blades hit 1 enemy, etc, right? And then you have your twisted blade, not much to say here. Enhanced twisted blade increases the return damage by 30%, and then whenever it hits an enemy that they pass through, they nerfed it, but you basically get up to 2 seconds worth of cooldown reduction now, which sucks, but it still does its thing, yeah? And then the rest I apply into sturdy to increase my melee resistance, well, close range damage reduction. So as long as I'm close to them and they're hitting me, etc, they don't do much damage by up to 12%. And then I heal, this is basically lifesteal for rogues, I heal basically up to like 3% whenever I crit someone that's nearby, right? And next I moved on to the next side, which is just 1 step into shadow step. And then enhanced shadow step will increase my crit chance, and then this will just stun. And I put 3 into weapon mastery just for more damage output. Specifically want to put into sword because it's just non-conditioned 9% increase over the daggers increase only to healthy enemies. And then of course bow, which is increased your damage to vulnerable enemies. And then the last one is, well, not the last one, but the next side I put 4 into concealment, which is your stealth. You can even cut it down to 1 and put 1 into enhanced stealth just to gain back some energy, which is also fine too. You can do something like this. I just want more cooldown reduction because 18 seconds is quite large, so every second counts for me, but it's really up to your preference. I maxed out poison trap for extra damage output, and this will be your bread and butter along with your death trap. I increase the 1 skill point into the poison trap knockdown or enhanced poison. This will work well with, I believe, oh right, I forgot, concussive, which is basically increases my crit chance against them whenever they're knocked down, so it synergizes with that. And then 1 point into suburban poison trap, which increases the poison damage as long as they're inside the poison trap. And then the rest of these are just more damage outputs, right? Oh, and because I am running concealment, which is the stealth, I put most into many obscurity, which will increase, will heal me for 6%, which is fine as extra sustainability combos with your siphoning strike, right? And then, well, not combos, but like as long as you're running around and healing back up, so you don't have to rely on your potion. And then 1 into agile, just for increased dodge chance for the most part. And then this is +3, but it's just +1. 2 is just from a armor or some skill from one of my armors. But it's just 1 into deadly venom. You don't need that much into it, but you can put more if you want. And then 1 is all you need into alchemical advantage, just to increase your attack speed. You don't need to level this up. And then 3 into trap mastery. Then you max out your death traps. Prime trap is just basically a pull when they're nearby. And then this one is kills, is reducing the cooldown by 10 seconds, which is really good. And then of course your key passive is you want exposure. Exposure enables your trap build to work really well, as it has a chance to reduce the cool times of your death trap and of course your poison traps, right? And then in addition, there's also a chance for it to drop some stun grenades, which of course stuns and deals some damage along the way. So it's a really good passive you want to have over any other ones when you're focusing specifically on your trap build. Right, so that's basically my skill tree. As for my paragons, it's I'm just focusing on mostly trying to get as much damage as I can into these. There's really nothing crazy right now. I'm still hunting down for some good paragons, but anyway, that's really about it for that. As for the aspect, if you want to see that, oh, first I'll show you my specialization I was running preparation. Most people are running inner sight still, which is fine by me. It did get nerfed, and it still does its job. It just makes you span your twisting blade a little bit more often. But personally for me, I'd rather have the reset so I can put more bombs on field. bombs, keep saying bomb, but traps on field along with the def, along with everything else basically, and reduction to my death trap, because I am running a specific aspect that does increase the cooldown now. As you can see, it's 62 seconds, so everything counts for this part. But anyway, I'll show you the aspect now. This replacing don't worry about this, I'm just replacing that. This one increases your healing every time you're nearby like a close enemy, as long as you're doing some, or as long as you're nearby them, right? So it's good for sustain. I got this rather recently, and it basically allows me to have a chance of summoning shadow clones, which is another ultimate that I can't use because I can only use one ultimate. This is just more damage overall, which is good. And this one I also got fairly recently from a butcher that I killed, but it now makes it so that my death trap will kill an elite as long as it did not die, but does not affect boss or players, so it's only for elites and small mobs, right? Which is really good either way when you are farming, right? However, I do have a setback of having the cooldown increase by 24%, which is okay, as long as I'm able to trigger the exposure mastery to reduce this down. I'm okay with that, right? This one is really important. You do want Shadow Step to have 2 charges, that way you can be a little bit more mobile, because overall the trap build, unless you're playing like dash plus Shadow Step, it's not as mobile as you would like. Concealment does help to get you moving a bit, even EV, just to reposition, etc, etc. So you do really want this for your trap build. As for my bow right now, I have Twisting Blade around it. It's just for extra damage on return, which is okay. This one I will most likely replace for something else. I'm trying to look for things like core damage, whatever increase, and attack speed increase. Those are the primary ones I'm trying to look for, but I'm still grinding for that, and it's taking a while, but it's okay. Specifically a higher number one. The ones I do have though are quite low, so that's why I'm farming for him. For this is your bread and butter, of course. You do want to, it basically makes it so that your agility, in this case my shadow step, reduce my concealment, right? So as long as it's reducing my concealment, and even reduces the traps, because these are all these traps, or not this one, but this trap specifically, and concealment is reducing these two, which you do want to, so that way you can spam them and then proc exposure, and exposure will reduce the death trap overall. So that's why you do want this one, and then this in turn increases your shadow step damage, right? So it's pretty good, right? And then for my last 2 dual weapons, I have, well, pretty bad aspects for both of them. I am trying to replace these again for core damage. I have some here, I think. I don't remember where it was, but I do have some there. I'm debating on whether to put them on this or just wait it out. I am looking for higher numbers, but yeah, that's really about it for this overall build. It's quite fun. Do give it a shot if you are new. I quite enjoy this, but I think most people early on are still using the death imbuement. I don't remember the actual name. I think they're still using this one here, the shadow imbuement rogue setup, which is fine too. It has a lot of mobility and it does burst through heavy mobs early on. I still like that, but I also prefer this version now, just because it's a lot simpler. It's less stressful on my hand, and it's just easier overall when you're trying to grind AoE for faster XP farming, etc, right? But yeah, that's really about it for the video. If you have any questions, I will try to answer them to the best of my ability. Just note that I am quite new to Diablo overall. This is like, I would say, my first Diablo experience in terms of like the main story franchise. I wouldn't count Immortal as anything, because honestly, well, Immortal, if you haven't played that, well, please don't. But yeah, as for my other content, Yugioh and Star Rail. Yugioh, I think June 8th there should be a new pack coming, which is the Bystial pack. I will showcase that on that day with multiple different decks, and I'll try to get content for that out as soon as possible when it is released. And then for Star Rail, I am waiting for Silver Wolf, or Brony as they call her in Honkai Impact, to drop, and then I'll most likely showcase her and 2 comms that I have built up. But other than that, that's really about it. So have a great day, be safe, take care everybody. Able is out.